I didn't know that it was abnormal. Something deep inside told me not everyone lived that way, but I didn't know how bad it was until I grew up.
My mom started dating who was to become my stepdad, John, and I didn't like him from when I met him. I mean, he walked in and I just got a bad vibe from him.
The world of child abuse is not a world that polite company wants anything to do with. It's not a world that you see in the newspapers, except when it's of the flashy Penn State variety. It tends to stop communication. It tends to stop conversation.
Well, abuse in general in the United States is a big problem. I mean, there are about 3 million calls to protective agencies involving about 6 million children in a year. And that's huge. And then about 1 million of these cases that are actually found to be true. Yes, there really was abuse.
We estimate over a third of children to be in homes where there is a difficulty or a problem.
When they got married, the first year it seemed pretty normal, but then when I turned 13, things changed with him.
I remember my friends thinking that I came from a privileged household. My father was a doctor, and I remember thinking, you don't have a clue.
I remember I pulled a muscle in my back, because I've always been in sports since I was little, and I pulled a muscle in my back, and he goes, well, you have a knot, hold on. I thought he was just gonna like rub it out. It was right in the middle of my back, and he just got really touchy-feely, like wrapping his hands around my waist and stuff like that, and I was just like frozen. I didn't know how to react.
I witnessed times when, just because my mom was late, 10 minutes past sunset, my father was taking her in a different room. And I'm assuming that she was physically abused because I could hear her crying through the door.
And it got to the point where then he started sexually abusing me.
People who are not abusers cannot conceive that someone could do the horrible things that they do.
Child abuse is not a topic that's easy to talk about because it hurts too much. It is too unpalatable for people. The problem grows ever stronger because people refuse to acknowledge that it's there. And as long as the acknowledgement stays silent and unvoiced, there's nothing to stop it.
What they found is you're at significantly higher risk for depression, suicide, substance use, multiple sexual partners, etc., marital and relational conflict as an adult if you've had trauma as a child.
The impact of abuse on a child's life as they mature into adulthood is unfathomable.
Folletti, this woman, before she died, she wrote to him and said, you know, you really helped me lose weight. I had my surgery, all of that sort of thing, but nobody ever asked me why I gained the weight. And she had been sexually abused.
In the A study, what we found was that adverse life experiences in childhood were remarkably common. although overwhelmingly unknown, dramatically related decades later to adult well-being, health risks, adult disease, and lifespan.
And the Centers for Disease Control, they were so interested in this, and they said, we want to study the real elderly population, over 65. And what they found is they couldn't study them. Because on average, if you've had that many childhood events, you're likely to die 20 years younger.
These were numbers, the magnitudes of which epidemiologists at the CDC told me they would run into once in a career.
These aren't just findings, they're findings of the decade. I think we forget that the mind and the body are so connected. So the etiology of a lot of what's happening to us physically comes from us psychologically and experiences we had as young children.
The ACE pyramid shows us how a child will go from these adverse experiences to disease processes and then early death.
Abusers are great manipulators, and they know how to get around almost anything. That's when he started threatening me. You're gonna ruin your life, your dad's gonna take you away, you'll never see your mom again, you'll never see your friends again. And I was just always scared, and I thought if I kept everything perfect in the house, that he would leave my two little sisters alone and nothing would happen.
It was my goal from age 7 to make sure she didn't know about the abuse in any way, shape, or form. Because if I didn't have my father and I didn't have my mother, I wouldn't have anybody at all.
My biggest fear was I was going to lose everything. That was my top fear. It got to the point where I was like, well, I'm just gonna keep trying to keep things perfect.
The persona that the family put out and what it was really like was different.
I was just so scared, and I thought I was doing the right thing by keeping it quiet.
My life and her life were both in danger if either one of us stood up to my father.
Around 1999, we had a clear idea of what we were learning from the ACE study, and I realized that this needed to be integrated in everyday medical practice.
In a very unusual move, this department decided to do something very courageous, in my opinion. They decided that instead of the regular questionnaire that just asks about obesity or hypertension, that they would add questions about abuse.
We introduced a number of trauma-oriented questions into our general medical questionnaire. Questions like, have you ever been a combat soldier? Have you ever lived in a war zone? Who in your family has committed suicide? Have you ever been molested, raped, tortured, etc.? To my amazement, they found there was a 35% reduction in doctor office visits in the next year and then an 11% reduction in ER visits. People said to me, how did you do that? You know, you send everyone to therapy, right? Absolutely not. Rarely did we ever. So how'd you do that? And we spent, believe me, a lot of time thinking, you know, how did this come about? Slowly we came to see that asking routinely and listening and making it clear that this person that was telling us was still an acceptable human being to us was a very powerful tool. That asking and listening and accepting was a form of doing. And the implications of this, of course, and people are very interested in the costs of medical care nowadays, quite understandably. The implications of this economically as well as humanistically are enormous and have yet to be exploited. ACE study has attracted intense intellectual interest in the United States, Canada, and Northern Europe, and for practical purposes, essentially no engagement in clinical practice.
It seems unfortunately that in just about every segment of our society, people will avoid talking about the topic of abuse. They say you can't ask those questions in a medical office. And when it comes to churches and schools and other community groups, people would just rather not think about it.
Basically, all of us have grown up having been taught that nice people don't talk about certain things or inquire.
After my 7th birthday, I told my teacher. She didn't respond, didn't do anything, I guess just didn't believe me.
I tried to tell my mom one time. It was probably about 1.5 years after it happened. I tried to tell my mom, and I didn't tell her everything. I just said, Mom, I have to tell you that John's been treating me in a different way than he should for a stepdaughter.
If people caring for the child pay attention, they will see that the child is always trying to give off signs that they're being hurt.
There are a lot of physical symptoms, headache, depression, sick to your stomach constantly, stress, not being able to focus on schoolwork.
If I could figure out a way to act out at home, then I'd do it. My grades were always really bad. I hardly ever had good grades in high school, and I think that was part of it, because I'd go home and I just couldn't focus.
We as kids never talked about, but it's impossible for neighbors not to know. This is not something that you could hide. Sometimes you could hear even from the street crying.
Most people really aren't trained to know not only how to recognize it, but beyond that, how to confront it. There's such a fear that how would I handle it if I did recognize it? So I really don't even want to know if it's there or not.
In 3 years, we never got one phone call. Instead, I have a notebook of letters, one of which reads, "Thank you for asking. I feared I would die and no one would ever know what had happened."
I wish there was a way to convey to those in positions to help children what an incredible impact they could have in a child's life and their future just by noticing what the child is trying to say.
It's really been a quite extraordinary experience, hearing from patients who are thankful that somebody finally asked.
When it came out and when I finally told, it was the biggest sense of relief ever. The week before my senior year in high school, my sister went to my older stepsister and told her that my stepdad had molested her. And at first I stayed with my story. No, nothing happened, everything's fine. Finally, my sister, she told me, she goes, "I've told and you can't." She goes, "You can't be strong enough to tell the truth." When I found out too that there was no case pretty much unless I had something to do with it, I called the detective and I said, "Well, I need to talk to you." I told him everything from day one. It was a relief. It was really hard, but it was a relief.
When I was given the ultimatum saying, "This is how it's going to be, or you don't live in my home," I took the letter. So I was not even 16, I had to leave my parents' home. I would say that was the turning point, because at that time, I wanted to be physical to my father. I was waiting for the time to grow up, to be able to give some back to him, what he gave to us and to my mom. And I realized that without a change, I'm going to just repeat. And that was a 180 degrees turn in my life.
It is possible to get people who've experienced very significant adverse events off of this trajectory of that leads to disease and early death. Often when you've gone through these, you're going to need mental health counseling, etc. But I do believe, and I have seen it happen, that persons who get a good positive support system with good professional care have been resilient. I meet those people all the time. They come to me and say, I was one of those people, and now I'm this or doing this and very successful, etc. It doesn't mean you don't carry your history with you, but it's how you're working through it now. So while those experiences can rob you of many things, you know, health is possible, restoration is possible.
I think the biggest therapy you can do for yourself is to have somebody you can talk to. And then ultimately, you will probably need professional help.
It's given me some trust issues, especially with Ned. But I went to counseling for it, and I was in counseling for a while. And so that helped a lot. It made a really big difference.
Many people are frightened to ask, embarrassed to ask, and it is never wrong to seek help. You're not alone. This is not something that's happened to just you by yourself. Many people have experienced this.
We need people to be aware of this so that we can get you off of that trajectory. We want to change trajectory, and it's possible to do it, but we have to acknowledge it and get help.
I've often wondered what I would do if I suspected domestic abuse or child abuse.
If you suspect abuse, what you do is do something.
You know, the grandparents who will come up after the child has died and said, I saw the bruises. You know, I saw the marks. And I thought to myself, I'll just watch him closer.
If you're pretty certain a crime has happened, like you see a child with a belt mark or you see somebody beating a child, that's clearly a crime. Just call the police. It's a crime. Because of the way a child is behaving, maybe they are being sexually abused, something like that, call Child Protective Services and ask them to come out. If you think something is wrong, it very likely is wrong, and do something about it.
It's frightening to make that decision without any proof that you're going to report someone or suggest that this family's in trouble. But it's an important thing to do. I think that fear makes us all silent.
What would have helped me the most is the people who noticed signs and didn't say anything at all and just watched as it happened. They could have made the biggest difference.
These children are often in great fear of telling anyone. Those are the children that are hard sometimes to identify, but generally, again, it's a behavior that comes out. The child who is now having nightmares, the child who is having many physical symptoms, somatic complaints, headaches, stomach aches.
There's always hints. The person is always giving off hints.
I think it's really important that we don't condemn children for things that have happened to them.
If I felt like someone was accusing me of doing something wrong, like I felt the abuse was my fault. So if they said, are you letting him do this? Then it was my fault. And then I'd say no. Sit your kids down and talk to them and tell them that they can be honest, that it'll be okay, that nothing's going to happen to them. Pretty much any sense of normalcy is what they're going to cling to during abuse, and letting them know that they won't lose it will be the best way for them to tell the truth.
Well, if you're being abused right now, first of all, I have to give you a lot of, empathy, and to say that there are a lot of people out there who really care, who really want to help you. The first priority has to be your safety. And so if you're not in a safe environment, you have to leave that environment. Don't try to fix it while you're still in that dangerous environment. All abuse is a crime. Find a safe place to go and call the police.
I think it's really, really important to tell. And I know that's way easier said than done. I obviously know from experience it's so much easier to say just tell somebody than it is to actually do it. But I learned you won't lose everything. Your life will become so much better. And it's not worth it to keep living the way that someone lives while they're being abused.
There is no dishonor in getting help. The first step's always the hardest. But it does get easier. It gets so much easier.
it lifts so much weight off of you if you tell somebody and get help for it. People think, no, my life will get turned upside down. No, it'll get turned the right way if they tell somebody.
People wonder, is there any hope for them if they've been hurt, or for someone that they love who's been hurt? And the answer is absolutely yes. But the main objective is to get off that trajectory that leads to problems in the future. And the number one thing that people can do is to connect. And that can take many forms. But the worst thing to do is pretend it never happened. Get involved with a therapist or a counselor, someone that you really connect to and think can, hey, this person understands me, they get me, they can make a difference.
Don't give up. Don't give up.
Typically, one thinks of how to repair the situation after the fact. And if one can do that, it's an enormous act of kindness, and you can learn a great deal. The reality is, however, that the magnitude of the problem, totally apart from its complexity, is so huge that we're never going to be in a position to take that on a population basis. You may make yourself into the next Albert Schweitzer or Mother Teresa and be so busy that you'll never notice that you're just nibbling on the edges of the problem, leaving the vast majority of it untouched. If anything is going to be done meaningfully, it would have to be done in the realm of primary prevention.
The most powerful tool to reduce or eliminate abuse is awareness.
Raising awareness is a big deal. That's why it keeps going on for so many people and for so long, is because not enough people know how common it is.
It's the secrecy and the shame that goes along with this that often keeps this problem continuing. We don't talk about it. It's something we don't want to believe happens next door. It does.
The ultimate answer is that we really have to care about children and not just say we care about children. We have a society that's very focused on material matters. Everybody is working vast numbers of hours, and the children are kind of not getting perhaps the attention they need to.
As a people, we are equivocators. If there's a way to kind of take a middle ground that doesn't offend, that's probably the way that most people would choose. But when you're faced with an issue like child abuse, where something is so intrinsically wrong, there's no equivocation. Saying no to that requires, I think, a very special kind of courage. The courage to say, you're wrong, this stops, I will not have this here. And I don't see that courage. I think it's a very, very rare quality, and it needs to be much less rare.
They're not easy fixes. You can't throw money at the problem and fix it. You have to just change people's attitudes to children.
They looked at all the demographics. The variable that explained that trajectory difference was called connectedness. Having an adult that you felt you could go to. And for children who've experienced trauma, it's getting them out of those environments and putting them in a healthy environment and giving them experiences of support and connectedness.
A lot of it comes back to family values. We have to start valuing children.
Adults with values make a big difference, and the commodity isn't all of these big resources. The commodity is time. It sounds simple. It sounds, oh, how is that going to help? But these are the keys to prevention.
And all of your ways and all your thunder got me in a haze running for cover. Where we gonna go from here? Where we gonna go?
I think I need to go back to counseling again, just because I can feel the longer I've been out, kind of getting anger issues more. And my trust issues are still there. And I want to be in a healthy relationship with somebody and be able to trust them. because I've been with my boyfriend now for almost 2 years and I still have trust issues. I want to be able to have a healthy relationship, and I just want to get past all that before I get into marriage, and I want to have a healthy adult life and get past everything.
Got me in a haze running for cover. Where we gonna go from here? Where we gonna go from?
I have an amazing husband, but it's been really hard. He's had to relearn, as I have had to relearn, how to be intimate, how to share love, what love is. Love is not sex. Love is not violence. Love is, it's more than I ever knew. I'm still trying to figure out what it is.
As a community, whatever our community is, our church community, our larger neighborhood community, if we make a commitment that we're there for each other to provide that support, then that's a big element.
It would require an acknowledgement of an evil that has reached such proportions, and to say no to it. Not one more man, not one more child, not one more woman. It stops now, here. If you can say that, then you got a chance.
I have no doubt that if well-intentioned, sensible people were to sit down and think how to approach that something useful and testable would come out of it.
There is definitely hope. There's always hope. It's hard to see it when you're being abused. It's hard when you're right in the middle of it. It's hard to think that there's life after it, that life could be any different, because that's all you've known for a while. But there is hope. With help and counseling and telling the truth, there's a way to have a normal life and to have normal relationships and be successful in life. So I want to, get married and have a family and all that fun stuff.